you know, my heart and what drives me every day is to help people make change, real sustainable change, especially in their relationship with food. I find that whether you're in recovery or you're not in recovery, most people tend to have something going on with their relationship with food, and that can fall along a spectrum anywhere, right? To where it's a little bit of a sense of something's not quite right for you, all the way to the other side of the spectrum where you feel like food kind of controls your life or your thoughts. And so my passion is working with people in recovery, but really at the end of the day, I absolutely love walking people through those changes to help them heal their relationship with food and really truly identify what foods serve them, their health and their goals, especially their mental health and their recovery the best. So this is kind of how this goes, right? 30 people sign up and maybe only a few show up. So I think we should probably just get started. You want to give me a second to pull up my slides and I'll share my screen here with you all. I can be, what's the word when you talk too much? Long-winded. I can be long-winded. So I'm going to try to get through this kind of as quickly as possible, because I want to get to the end and make sure that we have time for Q&A if people do have questions. I do not share my slides, but you are always welcome to hit the print screen button on your phone and take screenshots of a slide. If you're like, hey, this is, really good information and I want to save this, take a picture with your phone, hit print screen, and you're welcome to save that for later. So here we go. Today we're going to talk about nutritional resilience. And really what that is creating a firm nutritional foundation that supports your mental health and your recovery, that allows you to recover quickly from anything that might throw you off center, and really helps to move you from reactive to resilient. We're going to talk a lot about that today. Like, what does that mean? What does that look like? I just kind of told you all what I do. My business is called The Addiction Nutritionist, but just so you know, if you find this talk interesting, episode 13 of my podcast, also called The Addiction Nutritionist, is titled Reactive to Resilient. And my co-host and I, Nikki Aiello, sort of expand on this topic and go into more detail. So if you find that, you find yourself wanting more after this conversation, that would be a place to go and learn more. And obviously, I'm going to encourage you to listen to the other episodes as well. Miss Chris Engen is, I believe, episode 7, all about amino acid therapy. Fantastic episode. We have had amazing feedback about that. And then I just want to encourage you to stay to the end, because I love my handouts. I've got lots of handouts. I want to share those with you. I'm going to upload them to the little chat portal so that you can quickly download them and have access to those. So what are we going to talk about today? The agenda is really just going to be 3 parts. The first part is, what does it mean to create nutritional resilience? We're going to discuss the brain's role in this process of nutritional resilience, as well as moving from reactive to resilient. And then what does moving from reactive to resilient look like? And what are some really practical steps that we can take to move in that direction? Again, there's probably a wide array of people that are here today, people that are maybe in recovery themselves, people that love somebody that's in recovery, people that love somebody that's in active addiction. And maybe for some weird reason, you have no connection to addiction at all, and you just love to stimulate your brain and show up to things like this. But what I want to share is that this is going to be relevant no matter where you are on that spectrum. So stick around to the end and we'll have time for Q&A in those handouts. So here's the main idea. Nutritional resilience, it really requires 2 main components. The human body has a very specific set of nutritional needs, and a lot of people sort of develop their belief systems and their habits around how they should eat from all kinds of false narratives, right? The way that our parents presented food to us, maybe cultural, there are cultural beliefs around foods and that sort of thing that may or may not necessarily serve our bodies in the best way. We sort of enter into this space of nutrition. It's a little bit of a lion's den, because I do find that people always have some sort of beliefs around this, and that can be, you can kind of bump up against those beliefs quite a bit. And so what I invite you to do is just kind of keep an open mind when we're talking about this. I don't believe in dogma. What I do believe in is that we have a lot of science to show what the basic human needs to function really well. And so we're going to talk about what that looks like. contrary to popular belief, most people don't need to do special diets. Now, some people do. If you have an autoimmune disorder, if you have some other type of disease, there are lots of reasons why somebody might need to use diet in a therapeutic way, like the keto diet or AIP or paleo or something like that, or even carnivore. There are situations where somebody may need to do a special diet, but the majority of people don't need to do that. They just need to really understand what their body needs to function really well and to learn how to meet those needs on a daily basis. The second piece of that is we have the science that shows us the framework, but what that does not show us is what your unique body needs. Because of genetics, because of disease, because of age, because of gender, there are all sorts of reasons why somebody may need more of something or less of something. So that's why we take this framework of like, what are these basic needs I need to fill? And then we really do a lot of work with mindfulness and that sort of thing to identify what does my body need? What signals is my body sending me, and what other information can I gather to make the adjustments to find the Kelly diet, right? Or the Mary diet or the Chris diet, the diet that really supports our own health and well-being. Hey, just real quick, if anybody has their microphone on, if you could turn it off so we could cut out the back noise, and then we can turn those back on at the end. So those are the two main components. So let's define a couple terms. What is nutrition? This is probably pretty obvious, but at its heart, it's how we nourish the body. The body needs fuel and it needs building blocks. If you are associated with the Alliance, I'm sure that you are very well aware of the fact that protein is the building blocks for our neurotransmitter. That's just one aspect of feeding our body well. We've got to put the protein in order to produce serotonin, dopamine, GABA, and the endorphins. But there are a million other things going on. We've got to grow hair. We have to turn over new liver cells. We have to turn over the cells in our GI tract. Every 3 days we do that, actually. So we're constantly having to put food in our body to give us energy, which is only one component of that, but to constantly be rebuilding and repairing other things that are going on in the body. So putting fuel and food in our body really just supports life. Resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties and having that ability to spring back quickly. If you have experienced active addiction, you know that springing back quickly can be very difficult. If you have been on a journey of learning how to understand your emotions or learning to develop stress resilience, you may have experience in this area where something in life, a sickness, a job loss, an argument with your spouse, throws you off of your center. And depending on how well you are able to spring back from that incident really speaks to how much resilience you have in that area. I didn't share my backstory with you, which the headline of it is that I spent the far majority of my life dealing with disordered eating, a very unhealthy relationship with food, and having a lot of emotional dysfunction and addiction issues. And for most of my life, if I had a bad day at work, if I had an argument with somebody, maybe somebody just said one single sentence to me the wrong way and it hit me in a funny way, that would send me into a spiral for sometimes hours, days, and sometimes even weeks. It was very difficult for me to recover from anything stressful. So the idea of resilience is really fascinating to me because there are so many tools that we have out there for us to be able to develop resilience so that no matter what comes our way, we can recover very quickly so that we can move on with our lives, continue to have impact, and continue to experience great health. So if we put these things together, what is nutritional resilience? It is the consistent nourishment of the body, mind, and spirit that allows us to spring back quickly to that place of balance without serious disruption. So this is really at its heart, learning to take care of our own bodies by learning the language of our own bodies and what it needs so that we are being very intentional every day to make sure we're sort of filling these buckets or filling these cups so that whatever comes along my way, and I've got to pour out some serotonin, I've got to pour out some stress hormones, I've got to pour out energy, I'm constantly refilling all of those cups so that I can come back to center very quickly. So how do we get there, right? How do we create nutritional resilience? It really requires the following: just some very basic knowledge of nutrition. You do not have to have a nutrition degree or highly personalized training to be able to do this. You need to learn to use mindfulness. We're going to talk more about that in a minute, to build self-knowledge, to build knowledge of yourself and how you operate and show up in the world. It requires us to learn that special language of what are the signs and signals that my body sends me to alert me that something is off balance, something's not quite right. Because when you learn that language, it allows you to experiment with different action steps that can help you to meet those needs in a way that is appropriate, so that in the future, when you get knocked off center again and you recognize that same signal, you go, oh, I know what worked in this situation last time. Recognizing when you're offline. Some of you are going to understand that piece because you've heard us talk a lot about it at the Alliance in terms of blood sugar. So we'll touch briefly on that, but we're going to expand on that. And that's where we really get into how the brain operates and which part of the brain we're operating out of. Creating nutritional resilience really takes a deep health approach. This is one of the handouts I'm going to give you at the end. You can take a deep health assessment to sort of help you identify which areas of your life may be out of balance so that you can start taking steps to spend more time and energy on improving those areas and addressing those areas. And then always having a plan. That for me, for my clients, for anybody that I work with, this is crucial. You always want to end your day knowing tomorrow is clear. You know what you're eating tomorrow. You know what you're doing tomorrow. You know what the day is going to look like. This is crucial for people in recovery. I think it's really basic, and everybody should use this sort of knowledge. We don't have to sit down on Sunday nights and plan out our whole week, but we should always be able to answer the question, is tomorrow clear? That's going to save us a lot of trouble. You don't have to squint and try to look at this slide. What it is just a visual. It's 2 screenshots of an app called Chronometer. I was trying to find a better way to show this and it didn't quite work out, but Chronometer is a free app. Some of you may be aware of it. It's similar to MyFitnessPal, but personally, I feel like it is much better. It's very visually digestible, easy to use, user-friendly. And what this is I couldn't figure out how to fit on one page all of the nutritional needs that we have in one day. So when you download this free app and you use Chronometer, you can log your food for 1, 2, 3 days, however many days you want, and it'll start to fill in all the nutrients that you're getting from your food. So this is a great way to track your intake, to be able to check in with yourself on a week where you would be experiencing normal dietary patterns for you, right? You wouldn't want to do this on vacation. Just pick a normal week, log for 3 days, and you will quickly be able to see, what are all these nutrients? These are all the things that I need every single day. Where am I kind of nailing it? Where am I missing the mark? So for instance, you might food log for 5 days straight and take an average. It'll show you your weekly average. You're only getting 10% of magnesium in your diet. Well, that's a problem, right? Magnesium is a critical mineral that we need every day. If I'll give you just one example of why it's so critical. If you experience any kind of anxiety, you always want to make sure that your dietary intake of magnesium is really good. There are areas you might see on your food log, for instance, like omega-3, and you may find out you're primarily getting omega-3 from different types of fatty fish. And you might go, I'm landlocked. I can't even get good fish where I live. I hate fish, and in that situation, you're going to want to look into a fish oil, because you can't just sort of brush aside the fact that you're grossly under meeting your needs for omega-3. That is going to potentially manifest in inflammation in the brain, inflammation in the body, a lack of concentration, brain fog, all sorts of mood related symptoms, as well as physical symptoms. And so this is a way that anybody, you don't have to be a nutritionist, can sort of just start looking into, okay, what am I taking in? Am I meeting all of my basic nutritional needs? This is where that framework comes in, where all humans need to have some basic needs met, that can help you to start building your nutritional foundation, which will eventually lead to resilience once we start learning about the language of your own body and how to make those adjustments. We have some really messed up ways in America of viewing our food. It's unfortunate. And the only thing that I think we can do about it is to just try to make changes moving forward. We've been sort of pummeled with the idea that it's all about calories. I tell my clients, don't even worry about calories. We very rarely need to even look at calories. There are only a few situations where we really need to look at calories. People have become obsessed with flipping foods over and looking at the nutrient panel and not looking at anything except the calories per serving. And that is probably the least useful information on that nutrition panel. And so what I'm trying to encourage people to look at food as is not calories, but fuel for your body in terms of those vitamins, minerals, nutrients, antioxidants, protein, the different macros. What am I taking in my body in those ways, looking at the nutrient density of a food versus just the calories, because there are plenty of low calorie foods out there that have no nutritional value, or they've been potentially fortified with synthetic vitamins that your body may or may not be able to process the same as real food. So I think Twinkies versus apples is kind of a great example of this. I had a woman on my podcast not too long ago where we talked about weight loss, and she was explaining metabolism, and she gave this great analogy about if you're just showing up to your daily life, you really want to be looking at food in terms of like, what are these nutrients I need to take off today to be fueled up really well? And what nutrient dense foods are going to be able to do that for me? Because you have those basic nutrient needs on a daily basis. If you happen to be stranded on a desert island and you're just trying to survive and you actually need a ton of energy, that might be a situation where the potato chips or a Twinkie or something that has lots and lots of energy density to it might be a good choice. But that's going to rarely be the good choice. The better choice in our daily lives and in most days is looking at foods not from a calorie perspective and an energy perspective, but looking at it through the lens of nutrient density. Is this high in vitamin C? Is this high in magnesium? Is this high in calcium? The things that I actually need to have optimal health and longevity. And I want to share with you, because I work at detox centers and I take people sort of all along that spectrum of being in recovery. And I often get this reaction where I'm talking about whole foods, nutrient dense foods, and somebody will literally be like, ugh, like they'll make a noise, like they're disgusted because they've never eaten whole foods before. They've never eaten vegetables. It's kind of scary to them. And I want to normalize that. I did not eat vegetables until I was in my 20s, and I only did it because my husband made me do it. I was not into vegetables at all. And then in my early 30s, I ended up being diagnosed with 3 different autoimmune disorders, just like really close together, back to back. And that was initially what sent me on my healing journey. And it was terrifying to me to read about the foods that I had to eat because I did not have the palate for that. I had the palate for highly processed food. I mainly subsisted on high simple sugars, white flour products, and those types of things. I ate lots and lots of muffins and pancakes and breadsticks, and little to no protein or vegetables. But what I can share with you is that it was actually a really short period of time before I started to lose my taste for those foods and develop a whole new palate. I found myself craving things like spinach and broccoli and tomatoes and things that I hated, never liked before. Your body craves what you put in it. Your body craves what's in your blood. So whatever you ate yesterday, your body's going to crave today. But over time, as you make some of these changes from ultra processed foods to whole foods, you will find that your palate changes if you're patient and you just keep feeding it good stuff. So how do you continue to build up that nutritional resilience piece? So the first part is, you maybe using something like Chronometer to even just familiarize yourself with all the really intense vitamin and mineral needs that your body needs every day. But I would be remiss if we didn't talk about protein for just 30 seconds. I think sometimes there can be a lot of controversy around how much protein do we actually need. And there's lots of general recommendations. The Alliance will say anywhere from 60 to 90 grams a day. I think that's a wonderful general recommendation. But it's also important to note that protein is incredibly different than carbs and fat. Our body has infinite storage for fat. You can just look around the United States and see that on people's bodies. We have infinite storage capacity for fat. we have limited capacity for carbohydrates in our muscles, and we can store it in the form of glycogen in our liver. Eventually we'll run out, we have limited storage there, but we can't store protein. The only way we actually store protein is in the muscles, in the tissues. And if you know anything about health, you know that is the last place you want to go scavenging for protein. You want to protect your lean muscle mass, especially as you get older. I heard Lane Norton, I think it was, somebody talking about going into your body and using its protein sources is like going into a built house and scavenging for wood. You don't want to take wood out of the structure of your home, because then the home is going to start falling apart. And so it's the same thing with protein. We have this sort of fake place in the body that we call the amino acid pool. It doesn't actually have like one place in the body, but as we're eating food, as we're eating protein, specifically, that protein is being broken down into those amino acids, and we're constantly refilling the amino acid pool. Since we cannot hold on to protein the same way we can carbs and fat, that's why we have to eat protein every 4 hours. Our body also does recycle proteins throughout the day, up to around 250 milligrams. But the way that I like to visualize this is, if you're filling up this giant pool, and you've got a little hose, a tiny little hose that's sort of just slowly trickling water into that pool, those are the recycled proteins that are going into the amino acid pool, small amounts all day long. But every 4 hours, when we're getting a good, decently sized protein meal, we're sort of taking buckets and just buckets of amino acids and dumping it back into that pool so that we can fill it up faster, and make sure that it always is there for when we need it. When the body calls out and says, hey, I need to make some serotonin, hey, I need to grow a new piece of hair, or I need to turn over a liver cell, you don't ever want to show up to that pool and it's empty. You want to make sure that there's a combination of your body's recycled proteins, which is going to be missing key amino acids, which is the other reason why we want to be making sure that we're getting it from food. Those two things work well together to make sure we always have all the amino acids that we need in the pool, so that when the body calls up and says, hey, I need some stuff, it's always there waiting to be pulled out of the pool. So this is kind of coming to the end of the nutritional piece. I didn't want to get into the real nitty-gritty today of all the different nutrition science and how we need all the different vitamins and minerals, because I think that most of you have probably heard of those things. Either you're a nutritionist, or you've read about them or learned about them through the Alliance. But I wanted to share with you how you can make this incredibly simple. If you are showing up to your life every day and making your plan for tomorrow, your 24-hour plan, and you are focusing on building your meals around what I call the PFF model, and you build your meals around protein, some good quality fats, and some good quality fiber, you most likely have what you need. There's a very good chance that you're sort of checking the majority of those boxes if you're building 3 solid meals a day around the PFF model. We can get really, really bogged down with, well, how much carbs do we need? And how much protein do we need? And what are the best types of fiber? And if you're filling up your plate with these 3 things, you are really giving it your best shot. And the way that you can fine tune that is by using something like Chronometer. Start putting your meals in Chronometer. And again, you don't have to do this forever. I don't recommend people do it forever, because you sort of want to move to that place of, using the intrinsic value of things. But if you're like, okay, I've got protein on my plate, I've got fat on my plate, I've got fiber on my plate, preferably fiber, we want to primarily be getting from vegetables, and then after vegetables, fruits and whole grains. It's a very simple tactic. I would encourage you to use that with your clients. I would encourage you to use it in your own life. It has served me very, very well. So this is where we move into, okay, we talked about what are the basic needs. You can go on Chronometer and see the vitamins, the minerals, the amino acids that you need. You can use the PFF model to start filling in some of those missing nutrients with nutrient-dense foods. But how do we begin to learn to recognize the signals that our body is sending out, the very specific language that our body has developed to communicate with us? This can look very different from one person to the next. So these are just some really basic mindfulness practices to help you begin this process. And some of this is going to be really simple and straightforward, and maybe some of it's new to you. But basically, when you sit down to eat, you want to make every effort to have this be a peaceful experience, right? If you are eating in the car while you're driving through traffic, that's a problem. If you are eating in front of the television while you're watching the 24-hour news cycle, that's a problem. If you're doing anything that's really distracting while you're putting food in your body will use that food differently. Your biology and your physiology will actually be altered by that experience. The easiest way to give you an example of that is you will probably not produce enough digestive enzymes to digest that food really well, but even just the way that your body uses that food will be different. They've done studies, and there was one particularly on ice cream where they had two groups of people. This group of people ate ice cream and felt really bad and had a lot of guilt about it, like I shouldn't be eating this. And the other group of people fully engaged in the experience and was like, yeah, this ice cream's awesome and I don't feel bad about this at all. And the people who fully engaged in the experience of eating ice cream did not gain weight, and the other group who had shameful and guilt thoughts about eating the ice cream did gain weight. So even just our thoughts about the food that is in front of us makes a big difference. So trying to attempt to eat in a non-distracted way in a nice, peaceful, non-cluttered area, turning off your devices and really focusing either just on the food in front of you if you're alone, or the person that's right in front of you, and engaging in that experience. Smelling your food. Digestion actually begins in the brain. It's called the cephalic phase of digestion. When you smell your food, it actually travels up the nerves into your brain and it goes, oh, food's coming in, time to start producing those digestive enzymes. So digestion really does start in the brain. It's really important. Making sure to eat as slowly as possible. The more slowly that you eat, and this through every coaching program I've ever been through, they will tell you this is the number one most impactful practice that you can do, whether you're trying to lose weight or just get healthier or improve your overall digestion, is to eat slowly. It allows us to really taste the food, as well as notice the textures of the food, the complexity of the food. It allows that gap in between our stomach and our brain to sort of close. There can be like a 10 to 20 minute gap between our stomach stretching and sending signals to the brain that, hey, I'm getting full. When you eat slowly, it allows your brain to really pick up on that experience. And when the stretch receptors in your stomach are moving out, it allows those messages to enter into the brain at a much more appropriate time, telling you sooner that you've had enough. And I can tell you that this has been so impactful, because it's not just about like, oh, I'm picking up on the signal that I've eaten enough. It actually starts to regulate your hormones. Your hormones organize themselves around your lifestyle and what you're telling it to do. And when you're eating really fast, you're not giving your hormones a chance to sort of even check in, like, am I hungry? Am I full? I'm kind of confused. I'm not sure what's going on. But when you honor the practice of eating slowly, you allow your hormones to sort of click in at the right places. And that is actually how we end up allowing our body to find its natural weight. Because when the hormones regulate and we can find out, hey, I'm actually full right now, and that's a lot less than I put on my plate, and that's not a big deal because now I can save this other food for later. That's what allows us to find that natural, healthy weight that our body loves. Checking in with yourself. And one of the handouts I'm going to give you later is a food mood journal. So checking in with yourself is so important, because this helps to allow you to notice what's going on in my stomach and in my body when I eat this food. When I eat this food, does my heart race a little bit more? That could indicate a potential food sensitivity. When I eat this food, does my stomach feel a little bit fuller, a little bit more bloated? Is my stomach kind of making weird noises? Like maybe it's not digesting this food really well. How does my mood feel? Am I starting to find myself getting really sleepy? That could be indicating that I'm having a blood sugar spike. There are so many different things that you can pick up on, even just tension in your jaw from chewing, which can be like a combination of chewing and stress. There's so many different bodily sensations that you can pick up on that you would never notice if you're horking down food while you're driving on the interstate, trying to get to work. And so this again also allows you, what are the signals, the unique signals that my body is sending me when I need water, when I need more protein, when I need vitamin C. I have practiced these things over the years, and I know I know exactly what is going on with my body. And when it sends me a signal, I don't have to ask somebody else. I know what that means for me. And then I have learned what actions are appropriate to take to meet my needs in that instance. And that's what allows me to always stay close to that center. So again, resting your fork in between your bites, chewing your food really well, using something like the hunger scale. I won't go into too much of that. You can kind of look that up if you want to. Eating to 80% full, recording things on the food mood journal. This is really what allows our body to regulate all the physiology in the background when we're engaging in the eating of food. And if you look at other cultures from around the world, eating can be somewhat of a spiritual experience. We're blessing the food. We're saying a prayer of gratefulness for the food. We're using it as a time to connect with others and to sort of rest. The American culture around food has been flipped on its head, and it is the complete opposite of what our body actually needs in order to regulate all of these things. And all of this is what's going to help us move from that reactive to resilient state that we're going to go into more detail in a little bit. So I just kind of wanted to give you a little bit of a framework of like, maybe you're here and you eat a certain way and you've eaten a certain way for a long time. This is what can help you to understand if, however, the way that you've developed eating is working for you by answering these questions. Do you feel satisfied after you eat? Or do you find yourself walking away going, man, I like always still feel hungry, right? That's not a normal thing for a human. So that's an indicator that something may be off. Do you have more energy? You should have more energy after you eat, not less. If you have less energy, if you feel zapped, tired, fatigued, that's an indicator of something being wrong. Maybe too many carbs. There's a blood sugar spike, something going on. There's a food sensitivity. You should be sleeping better. You should be just feeling great in your body, that you feel at home in your body. Your mood is better. You feel stronger and have more endurance if you happen to be, hopefully you're moving in some way. And that doesn't always have to be like a strict exercise program, but hopefully you're moving your body and you feel stronger, as opposed to feeling like you're getting weaker and feeling like you can't keep up with the daily movements of life. And then finally, and this is really important, can you do this forever? Like I was saying earlier, there's therapeutic diets and they can serve people for different reasons. I have about 5 foods that I'll never eat because I have tried and true allergies to those foods, but everything else is pretty much game. Because over the years, I figured out how to eliminate things, develop a healthier relationship with things. But outside of those 5, established food allergies, anything is pretty much game for me. I do other diets occasionally to experiment with things, but I don't have to, because the way that I eat is highly sustainable and I can do it for the rest of my life. So that's a really important question to ask yourself, as well, about the way that you're eating. The last thing I want to say about this, because we did talk about the basic nutritional framework, but then the whole second piece is really about learning what does your body need. There are genetic reasons why somebody may need more or less of certain nutrients. I do DNA testing from nutrigenomics. This is just a little snapshot of my own personal report. And again, you don't need to like read all of this, but in the summary of results, you can kind of see on the left-hand side, because of the genetics that I have, I actually need a lot more B12 than other people. I need a lot more vitamin C than other people. I need more vitamin D, E, folate, choline, and calcium. So if I was just simply going off of chronometer and comparing myself to the average American, I would be undershooting those things quite a bit. And this also goes back to learning the language of your own body. I don't necessarily believe everybody has to do a DNA test. That's not why I'm saying it. I'm just pointing out that this can play a role as well. When my gums start to bleed, I know immediately that I haven't been eating vitamin C. I'll ask myself like, oh, when's the last time I had a strawberry? Like I love strawberries, but I'll go sometimes in the winter without eating them for months because I just forget. And so these are things to be considered, that sometimes you need a lot more of specific nutrients than somebody else. Okay, that's the end of the first part. So part 2, we're going to talk a little bit about the brain. Just see how we're doing on time. Oh, I'm going to have to go fast. Okay. So the human brain, the front part of the brain is called the prefrontal cortex. This plays a huge role in recognizing not only when we're offline, which I'm only going to talk about for a little bit, because I'm assuming that most of you understand the concept of blood sugar and how you can be offline with low blood sugar, but I'm going to expand on that a little bit. But having this part of your brain online at all times is incredibly important. This is the part of the brain that makes us human. It allows us to come up with a plan. It allows us to create an identity for ourselves. The joy center of the brain is in the prefrontal cortex. It allows us to come up with any sort of goal and map that out into steps and be able to think through those steps. As Christina always tells us, it's the house for our recovery skill set, and we always want to have access to that. It really is the thinky, rational brain. It's also the brakes of the brain. And why is that important? Well, when the other part of the brain, the gas parts of the brain, is being pushed, you want to make sure that the brakes are on. If you've ever worked in addiction, you're very familiar with the gas and the brakes, right? So let's expand on this just a little bit. The other side of that coin is this part of the brain here that we have many different names for: the amygdala, the reptilian brain, the animal brain, the primal brain, the lower brain. I've heard it called so many different things. My personal favorite is the lizard brain. I just really like that term. I think it really describes how when that part of the brain is activated, we move into that instinctual, animal, kind of slimy part of our brain that really just wants to get its needs met. And although that part of the brain we need, and it's really important for keeping us alive because it alerts us to when our life is being threatened, it's getting triggered way, way, way too much, right? It's only supposed to be triggered when, like, hey, I'm on the interstate and somebody's about to crash into me and I need to like move out of the way, or there's somebody chasing me, which would hopefully never happen. But something's threatening my life and I need to be on high alert. That really is the only reason we need that part of the brain, to scan the environment to make sure that we're safe. The problem lies when we allow our blood sugar, because of too much sugar, too much processed foods, or maybe we're not even eating our foods in an order that serves our blood sugar well, as we end up in the danger zone down here, which is low blood sugar. And that, as many of you know, is when the prefrontal cortex, our recovery skill set, gets shut off when we go offline, right? This is when, like, we can yell at people. We can just start grabbing for things because we're like, oh, there's an emergency. I'm operating out of my lizard brain and I need to get my blood sugar up really quick. Or we just don't have access to our thinky brain. And so we're just reacting in the moment, right? In most cases and in most scenarios, you don't want to be operating out of that part of the brain. You want to be operating out of the part of the brain that's allowing you to think through your steps. So we want to keep the lizard tame. We only want to bring out the lizard when our life is really being threatened. And so I want to expand on this just a little bit. And this is the way that I describe it to a lot of my clients and in groups. This is an oversimplistic way of looking at the brain, but really the brain developed from the bottom up. That lizard, that amygdala, that primal brain can really be best represented by what we call the toddler, okay? The toddler is concerned pretty much only with getting its needs met right now. If I need a snack, if I need a nap, if I need attention, if I need to go outside and play, I'm going to do whatever it takes to alert you to those needs right away. I'm going to scream, I'm going to cry, I'm going to throw something on the floor. The toddler's great at getting its needs met. It knows how to do that. The next area from moving up in the development is really the emotional center of the brain, or the limbic center of the brain. And we refer to this as the teenager. This part of the brain is led by emotions. And if you've ever felt like you are being led around by your own emotions, that can really take you to a lot of different places, right? Using chocolate to self-soothe or other substances, but doing something to sort of calm the teenager down, calm the emotional center of the brain down. If you've ever had a teenager, you know that they can be very, very emotional. And then there's what we call the prefrontal cortex, which is the last part of the brain to develop, right? The brain develops from the bottom up, and this is really the parent of the brain. If there is a toddler in the picture, or there is a teenager in the picture, the role of the parent is to be the prefrontal cortex for the toddler and the teen. It manages the other two parts of the brain. When we are experiencing active addiction, man, we are in that toddler brain or that lizard brain. We're just like, needs met now, needs met now. And it can really destroy our relationships because of the way that we show up in the world, right? We're just so needy and self-involved, and we just need to get our needs met really safe. But the parent's role is to interpret the needs of the toddler and go, You're crying. I'm not sure if you're upset. Let me think through this for a minute. Oh, it's been a while since you've had a snack. You probably need a snack. Let's try a snack. Let's check your diaper. Maybe you need a diaper change. Do you need to go outside and look at the flowers and be stimulated in that way? It's the parent's role to interpret those signs and signals that are coming off of the toddler to be able to figure out what's the real need here, right? And it's the same with the teenagers. Teenagers can get so wrapped up in their emotional brain. They go through a breakup and they think like, oh, she's the only person I've ever loved and I'll never love again. And the parent goes, okay, I realize you are very in your emotions right now and you love your girlfriend, but that's just not true. You'll find eventually the pain will go away. Eventually you'll meet somebody else, right? It's the parent's job to help that teenager rein in and understand their emotions and help them to realize that there's a rational piece here that needs to be considered. So it's the parent's job, the prefrontal cortex, to manage those other parts of the brain. Well, why is this important? Because we are operating out of all three parts of our brain at all times. Sometimes we're stuck in our toddler brain. Sometimes we're stuck in our emotional brain. And we, like I was saying, in active addiction, we get really stuck in those two different parts of our brain, primarily the lizard or the toddler part of the brain. But what we have to do in recovery is we gotta hand the baton over to the prefrontal cortex, to the parent, and go, look, I recognize I'm in my toddler brain right now. I'm being whiny. I'm just trying to get my needs met, or I'm being very emotional and I'm letting my emotional life lead me into different directions or lead my decision making. I need my own prefrontal cortex behind my forehead here to take over and go, all right, parent brain, I need you to check in and manage these other two parts of the brain so that I can actually think through what is the actual need right now, right? Because a toddler might tell you that they need a Capri Sun or something, but you might go, well, that's not actually what you need right now. Maybe you need something else, right? The toddler might want sugar, or it might want to go draw on the wall. And it's the parent's job to ask those questions of let's think about this and figure out what the actual need is so that we can meet the actual need and not just react to the situation of, I want that, I need that. If you're not able to sort of relate to the toddler parent concept, I think this also shows up with pet and pet owner, right? If your dog wants food, it's going to go knock the food bowl and come over and be like, hey, I need food, right? What happens if you just constantly shoo that dog away and you don't refill that dog's bowl? It's going to go find in the cabinets its own dog food. It's going to go find people food. It's going to climb up on top of the counter and get to the refrigerator and the cereal that's on top and knock it over and make a big mess. Dogs, just like toddlers, are really good at getting their needs met because they are always operating out of that survival mode, that amygdala part of the brain that's very instinctual. Same thing, like if a dog needs companionship, or it needs to play, it's going to pick up the tennis ball and roll it over to you. And it's going to do that over and over again until you pick up on what the dog is trying to tell you. Eventually, same thing. If you continue to ignore that dog, it's going to find a way to go get your attention. It's going to create chaos. Dogs, toddlers, and humans all have these really important needs that have to be met on a daily basis. And what we have gotten into is this reactive state where we don't even think about what the actual need is. We just feel something uncomfortable, like thirst or hunger or whatever, and we don't ask ourselves deeper questions about what's really going on here. Am I actually just bored? And we're just constantly we're constantly reacting to those situations and choosing things that are not necessarily meeting that need. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But the point here is, when we don't meet our own needs, when we're constantly living in a reactive state and we're just choosing to smooth things over with actions and that sort of thing that doesn't meet the actual need, this is when chaos happens. This is when destruction, bad decisions, again, if you're not giving your dog enough attention because you're not meeting the dog's needs, it will figure out how to get your attention. We have this concept that I'm sure most of you are familiar with called homeostasis. And that is how the body wants balance. At all times, the body wants to maintain balance. And it's easy to show that with weather related issues. If you go outside and it's 90 degrees, you're going to start sweating, that because the body is trying to bring your body temperature back down and cool it off. Same thing goes for you walk into a very cold restaurant and your body starts to shiver. Your body's heating up its molecules to bring your body back up to that place of balance, that temperature that the body likes. This is happening in the background all the time. So if something's out of balance, your body will find a way to meet its needs. We see this with sugar cravings, right? If I am depressed all the time and I'm not making enough serotonin, my body will increase cravings for sugar because it knows it can get a little bump of serotonin by consuming sugar. The brain is really always scanning the environment and scanning itself to make sure, are we in balance? And if not, where's the imbalance and what can we do quickly to bring the body back into a place of balance? And then really just the main idea of that is that we always want to stay close to center. Addiction takes us really, really far away from our center. And that's why it can feel so overwhelming and so frustrating to even think about getting sober or staying abstinent, because the path and the road back to that center can feel like a really, really long journey. But once you're in recovery and you start putting a lot of these practices in place, something happens, you get thrown off your center, but you're able to snap back. That's what resilience really is, right? You've traveled a little bit far away from your center, something has knocked you off, but because you've taken the time to fill your most basic needs every day and to learn the language of your body, that path back to center is very quick and it's very known. Like, oh, I know what to do, and this is going to rectify it very quickly. So let's define a few terms. We're going to move into the last portion, part 3, of really defining what is reactive to resilient. Let me just check the time. Okay. Reactivity is just constantly reaching for something to shift our internal state, right? Something's uncomfortable. I don't even feel like I have time to figure out what that is. I'm just going to react. We're reacting to the stimuli around us. Resilience is really responding instead of reacting. And so the difference is we've created space. We took a pause in the moment to go, okay, I'm not going to just react. I'm going to open up a very short space here and go, let me just get curious about this. What is it that I actually need? And the thing that I've been doing to rectify this, if you've ever been the kind of person who just drinks coffee all day long, you may recognize this. Well, I drink coffee because I have low energy, but have you ever stopped to think about, why do you have low energy, right? That's a good, example of this. And reactivity will always create chaos, and resilience and responding in a resilient way and allowing us to use choice instead is what creates peace. So we always want to be working towards more peace and less chaos. So what is the reactionary state? I've talked about it a lot, but at its core, what is it? What happens when we're in that reactionary state? We create chaos. We create a need for more, right? If I have low energy and I'm constantly drinking coffee or energy drinks or going to the vending machine and getting a Snickers bar or whatever to bring my energy up, none of those things ever actually truly satisfies the need. It just creates a need for more. I've shot my blood sugar up, and now in an hour or an hour and a half, I'm going to be reaching for the next thing. I have gotten addicted to coffee. So once I finish one cup, I'm now experiencing literal withdrawal from the caffeine, and I'm reaching for the next thing. When we constantly are in this reactionary state, we never, ever find real satisfaction. We just create a constant need for more. And that is a vicious cycle that can go on for decades, if not stopped. And when you're choosing to be reactive, you're really just feeding that underlying problem. You're feeding that vicious cycle. So what are some examples of reactivity? Okay. Oh, I'm starving. I was going to eat a salad today. I actually have a salad in the work fridge, but I'm just going to eat the pizza in the break room because I'll just eat anything. And I actually have more increased cravings for carbs and sugar now because I let myself get to the point of being starving, or I'm grabbing sugar, right? I'm just reacting to a really uncomfortable feeling. I have low energy. I constantly grab energy drinks. Nobody has an energy drink deficiency. So you have to ask yourself, why am I grabbing for those things? You have to dig deeper. Why is my energy low? Did I sleep good last night? Am I not going to bed at a reasonable time? Did I give too much of my energy away this morning in that meeting with so-and-so? Like there's all these different reasons that we sort of need to dig deeper and find out, why am I constantly self-medicating my low energy with energy drinks, right? I feel emotional. I want chocolate. I'm going through a breakup. I'm going to eat ice cream. I need comfort. I want carbs, grilled cheese, pasta. I feel dehydrated. I must need a sports drink, right? There's other better ways to hydrate you than constantly reaching for the Gatorade. I feel uncomfortable. I'm just going to choose whatever my substance of choice is, right? Sometimes that's just sugar. Sometimes it's alcohol. It could be other things, or even a process, right? It could be a process. I'm uncomfortable. I'm going to binge Netflix. I'm uncomfortable. I'm going to go place some bets, right? There's all sorts of things that can happen there. And then the last one is I feel lonely. Sometimes I don't know if I should bring this up or not, but I do think that it's something that needs to be looked at. Sometimes people just engage in casual sex because they may not necessarily want to. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying that they may not want to do that, but it's because they're not looking at the deeper issues of they're just feeling lonely and they're missing connection. So that's what reactivity looks like. What does responding in a resilient way look like? What does it do for us versus being reactive? It creates stability. We leave the chaos behind. It creates stability, consistency. I know when I wake up on a Tuesday, I pretty much know how I'm going to feel today, right? I'm not all over the place. I'm not grabbing for things to shift that internal state. I know what to expect. It creates stability and predictability. It creates feelings of contentment and satisfaction. I'm not feeding that vicious cycle anymore. I've identified what the real underlying need is, and I'm taking the action to consistently meet that need. Sleep is a great example of that. If you're just going through life constantly complaining about being so exhausted, but you're also staying up till 1 a.m. every night because you just have to watch 12 episodes of that cool FBI show, right? That's a problem. You'll never fix that problem until you identify what the underlying need is. And it allows you to stay close to that center, right? You don't get so far off course that you can feel defeated out here and like, oh, it's going to take so much work to get back. If you're constantly, daily, consistently learning the language of your body and taking the appropriate actions, and all that takes is practice, right? Mindfulness and practice, is you can stay really close to that center. And even things like getting stuck on an airplane, a job loss, or any other major life event, a sickness, it won't throw you so far off course. And so what does it look like to respond resiliently? Okay, I'm starving, right? Well, first of all, try not to let yourself ever to get to that point, right? Eat protein every 3 to 4 hours, as well as other foods, but especially protein. Always have snacks on hand. Prepare for tomorrow so that you're never put in a situation, if you can control it, to never be starving. I have low energy. Maybe I'm not drinking enough water. That's oftentimes the case, is that we just need water, and we get an instant pick-me-up. And maybe it's protein. Maybe you skipped breakfast, right? Maybe that's become a habit of yours because you just can't find the time. But maybe those are the real underlying reasons of having low energy. I'm feeling emotional. Well, I don't want to just eat a chocolate bar because, I could, but it's not going to fix anything, right? I need to do a little bit of work to find out, what is this emotion? Where is it coming from? What is it telling me about a need that I need to fill? And again, I'm going to talk really quick now because we're running out of time, but I need comfort. Maybe you just need connection. Maybe you call a friend. Maybe it's not pasta that's going to fix your problems. Maybe it's just calling a friend, going on a walk with a neighbor. You're dehydrated, drink water throughout the whole day and you won't get dehydrated. There won't be a need for sports drinks, unless you're an athlete. And again, maybe if you're feeling lonely, maybe you just need connection with other people. The difference between reacting in resiliency is that we leave the quick fixes behind, and we really develop a system for exploring what the underlying needs are. Resilience asks questions and plans ahead. I love this book and this doctor, Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. The book is called Nonviolent Communication, and he says, feelings are like lights on the dashboard, letting us know whether a need is met or unmet. So when we feel something, that's a little light that can go off and go, oh, there's a need here that's not being met. What can I do about that? And I also want to say that as grown-ups, I think everybody here is a grown-up, it is our responsibility to meet our needs. It is no longer anyone else's responsibility to meet our needs. When we're a toddler and a teenager, it's our parents' role to help us understand our needs, and when the time is right, to sort of start shifting us in the direction of meeting our own needs. But once you become an adult, it fully becomes your responsibility and nobody else's to know what your needs are, which I think is one area that a lot of people struggle with, and to learn how to take specific actions to meet them. You know, I really think of our needs as vitamin N, and those just have to be met as well. So just a very simple way that you can start doing this is when you feel anything, sensation, emotion, whatever, that's the cue that we go, okay, the light's on the dashboard. When you're in your car and the light comes on, you look and see what is that light? What does that light mean, right? You pause in that moment. Don't be a lizard brain. Don't just react. Be a human, use your prefrontal cortex, your parental brain, and don't just react without thought. Really create space in that moment. Take a pause and go, all right, this thing's coming up for me. What can I do about this? What does it mean for me? Ask questions. Notice the feeling, name the feeling. Oh, I've noticed it. Feels a little bit like sadness. I'm going to get curious about this. I'm not going to use shame and guilt because that will lead me down the path of reactivity to cover up the shame and guilt. I'm going to use kind curiosity. I'm just going to ask questions and observe from the background. Why is this coming up for me? Why did that bother me so much? What's going on here? And then you have to identify how do you meet that need? What is the need, and what are the actions that you can take to meet that need? Explore what you could do better to plan ahead and prepare for next time. And that's how you get to a place where eventually you feel really resilient, because every day you're meeting your needs. And when something knocks you off center, you spring back very quickly and all is right with the world. So if you're going to satisfy your most basic nutritional needs, this is kind of a review. Your basic nutritional needs is that we all need protein, fat, fiber, vitamins, minerals, water, and we need to have optimized digestion to be able to use those vitamins and minerals. We also have emotional and primal needs. This first column here is our most basic primal human needs. We often are not told that these are actually needs, but if human touch, the ability to play, feeling seen and heard, all of these things, feeling like we belong. If these primary needs are not being met in our life, that is going to manifest in reactivity as well. And then there's a whole nother, you could do a lot of research on this if you wanted to at looking at secondary needs, but sometimes we only think like, oh, I need protein, but we also need human connection, right? And when those needs aren't met, that leads us down reactivity as well. So if you're going to start to approach this, you're going to want to take a deep health approach. We're not just looking at nutrition. That's just one piece of it. We're also looking at our emotional health, our social health. What does our environment look like? What's the state of our physical health? And this is an assessment that I'm going to upload in just a moment. I just want to share, I realize it's 1 o'clock and some of you may have to go, but this is the portion where I'm just going to share the tools with you, and I'll go through this really quick. So PFF model, protein, fat, and fiber, that's what you want to put on your plate. I can come back to this later if anybody has questions, but this is a really easy way to forget about grams and ounces and all of those things and just start using your hands to help you figure out what is a good portion size. You can pick a portion size and test it out and be like, oh, that was a little too much. That was not quite enough. But getting in touch with yourself and using mindfulness will tell you what a good solid portion is for you, but your hands are always with you. So it's a great tool for helping you to understand portions. Going back to Chronometer, fantastic app. It's free. I can't recommend it enough. I don't recommend it long-term, just as a way to check in. Am I getting the majority of the nutrients that I need every day to create that firm nutritional foundation that I can build upon? I will also upload this form. It's just, I call it the PAUSE protocol, post-acute withdrawal syndrome. This is free on my website, but it's just a great infographic you could put on your fridge of lots of nutrient-dense foods that support recovery. I also have a food mood journal if you want to start putting some of these mindfulness pieces in place of checking in with yourself. How do these foods make me feel? And how are they affecting my mood and energy and things like that? And then the deep health assessment, which has a scoring key. So you can take the assessment, score it yourself, and just sort of look at what areas do I need to start working on? So that is the end. Thank you for being here. Again, I encourage you to check out my podcast. It's on Spotify, Apple, and iHeartRadio. It's called The Addiction Nutritionist. I have a group membership called Recovery U. I offer individual coaching as well, lots of different types of assessments. If you have questions and you've got to run, you don't have time for it today, or you're not comfortable asking me the question in this platform, feel free to email me at kelly@theaddictionnutritionist.com. And obviously my website, you can sign up for my newsletter, get connected to the podcast there, theaddictionnutritionist.com, all the things. I am sorry I talk so fast. I told you I was long-winded, but I hope that you all got something that you took away from this today.
Hey, Kelly. I'm Shelly.
Yes.
I'm the chairman. I just want to say thank you for coming. That was incredible. And it was great. Great to have you on and very easy to follow. So I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that so much. Oh, I can see that they're,
I second that, Kelly. You're so inspiring. You put that together so beautifully, the message, and your coaching energy really came through. Great information. I love it.
Thank you, Chris. I did put this whole thing together this week. It's things that I talk about regularly, but I was like, oh no, I have to put it together in a PowerPoint. So I was really nervous there was going to be some like parts where I got stuck or some typos. So I'm sorry if you saw typos in there. I just put it together this week. But yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, nobody has an energy drink deficiency.
I love that. I latch onto these little things. I was like, that is amazing. I'm going to use that with your permission.
Yeah, take it. I probably heard it somewhere else and stole it too. Who knows? Does anybody have questions? I really love Q&A, so I hope somebody's got at least one. No?
Can you give me the info about your Spotify and the other places? I'm writing it down.
Yes, and I almost forgot. I told you I was going to give you all these. Let me upload all these to the chat. Okay, so here's the Food Mood Journal. I'm putting everything in the chat. And the next one is the Deep Health Assessment. I just uploaded that.
Is that your own creation? Or is
Nope.
that, yeah.
Yeah, I'm certified by Precision Nutrition in level 1 and level 2, and they allow us to use a lot of their assessments.
Okay.
Let me also give you the pause protocol infographic. Here it is.
Can I just type that in and it will come up, or do I have to go somewhere else? Food Mood Journal.
No, so what I did is I literally uploaded the file to the chat. So if you click on it in the chat, you should be able to download it to your computer.
How do I do that though? I don't know the step.
So just click on the file and it should give you an option to download. Maybe somebody else can do it and tell me.
Yeah, I'm doing it right. I'm doing it right now. You just click on it. It downloads. It goes, at least for me, it goes straight to my files, and then I just choose where I want to store it to save it.
Huh.
Once I click download.
I don't see it here.
If
I'm
you
on a
right
tab.
if you right click, oh, you're on a tablet. Oh, I don't know.
Oh yeah, I don't know about that. I'm just on my laptop.
If you want to send me an email at kelly@theaddictionnutritionist.com, I'll send you all these handouts.
Okay.
And
Kelly at
I'll type it in the chat. And the podcast is called theaddictionnutritionist.com. So if you go to Spotify, Apple, or iHeartRadio, you should be able to find it. We've got, I think, 17 episodes up now. We've just launched it recently.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure. And my group coaching program is only $34 a month. We have multiple meetings a week. You can pop in. I have a whole full-blown post-acute withdrawal protocol in there for how to eat in recovery. We have monthly challenges, monthly themes, guest speakers. We just launched it, so we only have a handful of members, but we're trying to build it up, because at $34 a month, you really can't be beat, if you're looking for nutrition and recovery support, in a group format.
Can you
Thank
put
you.
that in your link? Can you put your link in the chat?
It's on the website. So if you go to the website and you go to services, you'll see the link to, it's called Recovery U.
Okay, can you put your website in the chat?
Sure.
Thanks.
There we go. There's the website. Really, no
Thank you
question.
so much for your presentation.
Thank you for being here.
It was very well done. Very
Well,
knowledgeable.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you. Anybody else? No?
Thanks, Kelly, so much. It was great.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you, Kelly. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you to the Alliance for hosting me. Okay, well, I'm going to log off. Thanks for being here. Please reach out if you need anything else from me, or you can figure out how to get the handouts, and I'm more than happy to email them to you. So take care, everyone. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Kelly.